and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all doing very well this beautiful Sunday morning. Let's hope it's a Sunday morning because I'm filming this Thursday evening. I mean, you know I love winter, but isn't it exciting that the days are getting longer? It is exciting. Today's video, coming at you on the last day of the month, is my January wrap-up. It's the wrap-up of all the books that I've read in January. 9 books, in fact, I've read in January, one of which being this big fucking massive one.
You still read 9 books?
Even though I read this.
That's very impressive.
I know. It is
You're
good,
quite good at reading books, aren't you?
I'm quite good at it, yeah. So yeah, just to say, this will be the last video you will see of me, not ever, hopefully, that I'm taking February off. I have done this for the past few years, taking February off. It's an enjoyable time. If you would like to continue to follow my reading throughout February, please head on over to my Instagram account, at Lauren and the Books, and you'll be able to see what I'm reading in real time there, because I wrap up my books as I read them on Instagram stories. So if you'd like to go over there. If not, I'll see you back here on the 1st of March for my March TBR. My Patreon is still going ahead, so if you're a patron of mine, do not fret, there will still be a February book club. And yeah, that's it. So let's talk about the 9 books. So something I thought I might do this year is, as the months go by and I talk about what books I've read, I'm also going to, and I got this sort of idea when I was watching Mercedes' video of her talking about the end of the year and like all of her, where she'd got most of her reading from, and I thought I would just update you as the months go by with where my reading comes from, really. So for example, in January, so we'll do this in January, I read 9 books. 4 of those were audiobooks, so 44% of my reading so far this year was audio. 3 of the books were either sent to me by the publisher as a finished copy or as a proof copy, so that's 33% of my reading. And then 2 of the books that I read I owned, so that's 22% of my reading so far. No books were from the library, however I've currently got, it's probably about, I think I've got 21 books out from the library, so I imagine when we do this again in March and I incorporate my February and March reading, that library number will be high. So yeah, I thought as I do a roll-in sort of total of where my reading's coming from as the months go by. You know I love the stats. You know I love the stats. But anyway, let's go on to what I actually read this year. So the first book I read of the year was Dear Fatty by Dawn French. And this was an audiobook. I listened to this on the Libby app. Got it out from my library. Dawn French is a very well regarded, and I love her, comedian and actor from the UK. She's probably most famous for the Vicar of Dibley show, but she's also a writer with her friend Jennifer Saunders, and I've sort of enjoyed her career throughout, mainly Vicar of Dibley, but also just seeing her pop up in other stuff, and she just interviews really well. She's got a really fun podcast with Jennifer Saunders, and yeah, I just love her. And she wrote this autobiography. It is older, so it's dated because it was published in 2008, and in it a whole section of it is sort of talking about her husband Lenny Henry, who she is now divorced. So yeah, it's a bit dated in that, but I loved the premise of it. So it's a memoir of her life, told in letters. So she writes letters to various people throughout her life. Lenny Henry, her husband. Fatty in name is what she calls Jennifer Saunders, her best friend. Then her mum, her dad, her brother, her niece, her daughter. And yeah, I just found it a really sort of like touching way to write a memoir. And there was such sad bits in it. So this memoir herself, which is, I feel like this might be the first time I've ever done this. I've listened to a memoir of like a celebrity who hasn't read it herself, so she gets Lisa Tarbuck, who is also a comedian and a TV presenter and all sorts of things, to read it out for her, because there's bits in it which are really sad, and there are really sad bits in it. Trigger warning for suicide, death of a parent, and racism. But yeah, it just felt really sort of friendly, like despite the sadness and stuff, it felt really like I was sitting down and having a chat with Dawn French about her past, and like these letters were alluding to things that were happening now, but also things that had happened in the past. And I loved hearing about how she met people and her previous engagement, and just yeah, I got a great deal of joy out of it, and like still thought it was so sad. And she's actually is an author now as well. One of her books was longlisted for the Women's Prize last year, so yeah, read writing skills all the way through. So there we go, that was the first book. Then so I finished that on the 5th of January. Guys, I didn't finish another book until the 18th of January, and it's because I was reading this, which is To Parachutize by Hanya Yanagihara. This came out in January, so this is brand new, and this is from the author of A Little Life, which is a highly hyped and reviewed book here on BookTube that I've never read. I actually owned it 1 year for my friend Alex's birthday, for his 30th I think. We got him a subscription to Willoughby Book Club, and one of the books that arrived during that Willoughby Book Club year was A Little Life, and he read it and said, I've read it, it was an experience, I'll never read it again, would you like to have it? And I took it, and then heard so much stuff about how sad it is and tragic, and I just thought, no, I just don't think I'm ever going to put myself through it. And I've now given that book on to my colleague at work. So I was nervous of reading a book by Hanya Yanagihara, just because I'd heard so much sadness from her first book, A Little Life, and then the second book I think was a bit unusual, The People in the Trees, and I hadn't felt compelled to read either of them, but sort of knew of Hanya and had heard wonderful things about the beautifulness of her writing, but had always felt nervous about reading it because of the sort of like tragicness around it, and like how sad, misery porn I think I'd heard somebody describe A Little Life as. But this wasn't like that, so I'd heard things that this wasn't like as sad or as tragic as this sad and tragic things that happen in this book, but it wasn't like that. So I went into this feeling quite confident that I would be able to read it and not feel really miserable. And this book itself, over 700 pages, and it's basically it's more 3 novels in one book really. So it's told in 1893, 1993 and 2093 in 3 different versions of America, and there's a lot of references to Hawaii in here, and colonialism, and pandemics and climate change, and each book, each part of the book uses the same character names to describe the characters in there. So there might be a love story between, I think it's David and Charles in one section, and then in another section it might be that Charles and David are father and son. All sorts of different things, and I was intrigued by that, and I found that enjoyable, and I didn't hang on too much to the David and Charles or the Eden that I knew from the section before, and I was able to sort of like really invest myself in this new version of David and Charles and all of the names. So yeah, I found the repetition of the themes and the characters very interesting. It did take me fucking ages to read. As I said, I didn't finish it until the 18th of January, and I started it on New Year's Day. So almost 3 weeks it took me to read this. Now I know it's massive, but in a world, like, I couldn't even imagine a world where I would only read one book in 3 weeks. But yeah, I'm really glad I like invested some good time in it. I took it away with me, I read it when I was here, I took it to work with me. Yeah, I was quite into it. Yeah, the writing is gorgeous, and I wonder if maybe it was too much of a good thing for me, because by the end I feel like I was a bit immune to it, probably because I've been immersing myself in it for so long. I definitely don't think I'll read her 2 earlier books, but I think I will read more to come. But yeah. And I love this front cover, and this is the proof cover copy, so the front cover, I wonder if it looks just like that, but yeah, lovely. So there we go, that's my thoughts on To Paradise. Then I read The Descent of Man by Grace and Perry. This was one that I started towards the end of December and then just never got round to finishing it. So this is Grace and Perry looking at gender, and in particular looking at toxic masculinity. Grace and Perry is an artist, and he presents as a man but also dresses up as a woman. He refers to himself as a transvestite, but I didn't know if there was negative connotations with that word anymore. So if you do know, please do let me know. As I said, Grayson's an artist, and throughout the book we were sort of littered with, here we go, a skyscraper in the shape of a massive penis. And I really thought that the illustrations that accompanied these essays about malehood and toxic masculinity were really great, and very sort of like lent themselves well to the essays that were in there. I thought it was wise, I thought it was enjoyable, and I got a lot from it. It's only a short little thing. I'm just seeing if I wrote any more. Oh, I just put short and sweet and I enjoyed. I'll see what else I've written on my review. But yeah, short and sweet and I enjoyed, that's what I said. Next up was a audiobook that I did not enjoy, and I'm so disappointed about this. So this was Swing Time by Zadie Smith. I have read other Zadie Smith books in the past, and I would go as far as to say that On Beauty, I read On Beauty before BookTube, so it never would have appeared in like my favourite books ever situation, but like probably was one of my favourite books for a really long time, and also enjoyed White Teeth and NW and just the whole back catalogue basically. And I listened to this and I was just disappointed. I just felt, this felt very sort of vague to me, and I struggled to follow the plot, and to be honest, I felt like maybe I wasn't intelligent enough for this book, and I felt like that when I read Intimations, which is another one of Zadie's more recent books, which is a collection of essays that she wrote during lockdown. And I don't know if I just felt like I was being held at arm's length in terms of like not being intelligent enough to enjoy it. We're following an unnamed narrator and her sort of relationships with females throughout her life. Her mother, her best friend Tracy when she's at school, somebody, a pop star that she ends up working for. And yeah, the unnamed narrator thing didn't really work for me, and that, as you may well know, is a device that I've loved in other books. Rebecca, she's an unnamed narrator, and I love that. But yeah, the friendships in there, I didn't feel, so I heard it was a book about female friendships. I remember seeing somebody talk about it on a TV programme, and they said, oh, it's great, it's about these two young girls running around North London and being dancers and really getting to know each other and like their love for dance and stuff. And I didn't feel like that at all. Like, I felt like it felt sad. The majority of the book to me felt very sad, and I sort of had to encourage myself to go back to it. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it at all. Yeah, it felt dragged out. Sad. I'm sad I didn't enjoy it, and it felt sad. Next up was a better audiobook though. That was The Boy with Wings by Lenny Henry. And this is Lenny Henry, who I've just mentioned earlier, who was married to Dawn French. This is a book that came out, I think, towards the end of last year. It's a middle grade book about a young lad, Tundi, and his sort of struggles at school and not getting on with people and maybe feeling like an outsider, and his parents and things, a good relationship with his parents and stuff like that, but always feeling a bit sort of like left on the outside. And then it sort of turns a bit into like a sci-fi book. It starts with Tundi being told he's not allowed to run. Don't run, his parents keep saying to him, don't run. You won't run, will you? And he's got like a relationship with birds outside and things like that. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It felt really, really fun. And I think if you've got a reader in your life who's like into middle grade, then I think this is something they'd really enjoy. And the audiobook's great. Lenny Henry's audio narrations, I'm really repeating myself from what I said in my reading for 12 hours and 24 hours, but like, I've listened to him narrate My Name is Leon, and he's just fantastic. His narration is absolutely amazing. I also liked in here the scientist part of things. So Tunde's mum and dad work as scientists, and there was like, as well as there being a sci-fi aspect, there was like a science aspect to this as well. But yeah, would highly recommend the audio. The actual book itself is illustrated, so I imagine that's wonderful too. Then David and I read Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. So I've also mentioned this year. One of my reading resolutions was that I wanted David and I to read a book aloud to each other, one book a month. So I will pick the books for January, as I did, and then David will pick for February. I love reading aloud, and I do a lot of reading aloud. I read aloud when I'm in the bath. I read aloud, like, as long as I haven't got other people here, or I wouldn't read aloud in public, for instance, but I enjoy reading aloud, and always did, even like as far back as school and stuff. And David doesn't love reading aloud, but I like reading books together, and we just had such a lovely time reading this, and we were really chill about it. So we said we'll start when we're ready, so we knew we'd had this book for the whole of January, and I'm filming this on Thursday, as I said, and like, we haven't read something together for almost a week now, and I think, oh, I can't wait for February, because then we can start David's book. But yeah, so like whenever we were feeling up for it, which sometimes was like consecutive nights, sometimes we'd leave like 3 nights between it. I don't think we started reading it until the 3rd. We'd read a chapter each aloud, just sat on the sofa, and then we'd have a chat about it. And every time we started it, the next time we'd be like, right, what happened last time? Oh yeah, do you remember this? Do you remember this? And it was really nice to sort of like recall it. David remembering certain things about it, and me remembering certain other things about it, and having a chat. And I had read this book before, so I knew how it was going to unspool, and seeing David sort of like work that out as it went was really interesting. And also I'd read it, but a long time ago, so there was bits that were missing from my memory. But yeah, I mean, this book itself, like, if I talk about the book itself rather than the reading experience was fantastic, and like, I just, reading aloud with David or enjoying a book with David is just wonderful. But the book itself, oh my god, it's so sad. And when I finished it, I was in absolute bits, just crying, because it was so sad. And I think I felt sad the first time I read this, but now I've got my one true love, David. Any sort of like sad situation in a book, I think about David in it, and like me and David and just feeling sad. Yeah, because, so I felt emotional about it the first time I read it, but this time added emotion because me and David read it together. But yeah, it's beautifully written. I don't really want to get, if you haven't read it and you don't know anything about it, David went into it not having even read a blurb. It sort of, it goes in a way that you wouldn't expect it to. I guess it's like maybe like a campus novel. It's set in England in the late 1990s. You're following a central character, Kathy, and her time at a school, seemingly a boarding school, and some of the people around her, a girl called Ruth, a boy called Tommy, and the teachers that teach them. And then it sort of goes throughout Kathy's life and touches on Ruth and Tommy's lives as well. So yeah, very interesting, beautifully written. I've read By Katsura Chiguru, I've read this and Clara and the Sun. I must read Remains of the Day. I keep saying I want to read it. I must read it because I didn't love Clara and the Sun, but I did love this, and this I loved it as much the second time round, maybe even more the second time round. So yeah, enjoyed. Good one for reading aloud with someone. Good one for a book club, I would say. Very good one for a book club. Next up was another audiobook. It was Little Eyes by Sarah Schweblin, recommended to me by my friend Emma's boyfriend. This was very much like an episode of Black Mirror. It is set all over the world, and you hear from people all over the world who have a kintaku. They've bought themselves a new little thing called a kintaku, which is like a teddy bear in the shape of all different animals, different colours, all roughly around the same size. And you set one of them up, and it's almost like a sort of Alexa. I don't want to say Alexa because I can see her light at me. Has cameras in its eyes and sort of films you and follows you around and things like that. And within that, so you either own one of them kintakus and you're a keeper, or you are a dweller and you buy a sort of like code that will enable you to live inside one of these kintakus, who might belong to a child, might belong to an adult, might belong to an elderly person, like all sorts of different people, might be a family pet or anything. And yeah, and you don't get to pick where you're going, and you will never communicate with that person in real life unless they sort of share with you their email address or phone number or where they might live or something like that. So there's lots of different levels to it. They start off as a children's toy, and then they see that maybe they might be useful as a companion to older people. There's lots of sort of like ethical bad shit going on in here, but also like you see, like I said, companion for older people and stuff like that. It was interesting, and I loved the sort of focus on tech and obsession with tech. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, this could completely happen. This could completely happen. But what I will say is it was a short little thing. It was about 7 hours on audio, and where it flitted from like person to person all over the world, I didn't feel like we got enough time to sort of get our teeth into the characters there, or like character development, or even plot development in parts. The plot was very speedy and choppy, and it kept it moving, but like there was never anything sort of like deeper on there. But yeah, I love the idea of it, and I did think about it a lot. I think David's going to listen to it as well. He enjoyed it. Next up was Wahala by Nikki May. This is the proof copy. This was also out in January. This is one of those tricky little books because I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the plot of it. I enjoyed the plot is that there's three friends who are all mixed race women living in London with a Nigerian heritage. Ronki, Simi and Boo, and there's a lot of talking here about food and about fashion and about interior design and going out and friendship and things like that. And they've got a friend, well, somebody from their past has shown up again, and all hell sort of breaks loose. Now that as a premise and that as a thing, I was really enjoying in here. But my god, the fat phobic comments in here just so upsetting. Like one of the characters, Ronki, she's into food, and like also like the fat phobic comments not even being just sort of like in passing, but also used to harm. Like one of the women in here refers to her husband in secret as Tubby Hubby, and like there's another part as well, and I'm only because I remember editing the video and seeing myself talk about them. There's another thing in there where one of the friends, so Ronki, picks up one of her other friends, and her friend says, 2 inches shorter and 2 stone heavier, she was still able to pick me up, or something like that. And it's just sort of like referred to all the time, which was like disappointing, because that means like for me, I can never like truly recommend this book with love in my heart, because I know the fat phobia is in here, which just saddened me. But I did love the sort of the gossipy nature of it, and it felt like a real sort of escapism, and like I sort of ate it up as I was reading it. But yeah, though the fat phobic comments, and they were sort of relentless early doors, I was like, oh, I hope that's not going to stick around, and it did. But that goes to show that I did enjoy the book though, because normally I wouldn't stick with a book that had fat phobic comments in it. But yeah, disappointed, but still enjoyed it. confusing, isn't it, thoughts and feelings, because you can still enjoy something even if it's problematic to you. But there we go. Yeah, the villain piece in here is very well done, and it all absolutely like just descends into chaos in the end. But yeah, I enjoyed that. And the Nigerian food culture and just culture in general, it's got some recipes in the back which are inserted as well. So yeah, enjoyed. And then the last book of the month, I can't really talk about it very much because it was Crimson by Niviaq Cornelissen. This book is also known as One Night in Nuke, and this is our Patreon book club book for January. So the genre that we picked was books set in cold climates, and this is set in Greenland. It's actually translated from Greenlandic. It was translated from Greenlandic to Danish, and then from Danish to English by... Let's mention the translator. It was translated by Greenlandic to Danish by the author, and then it was translated by Anna Halliger into English from Danish. And yeah, I can't really mention much about this because by the time you see this video, we won't have discussed it yet. This is very rare that my reading wrap-up goes up on the actual last day of the month. So we will be talking more about this tonight. But if I just give you a little instance of the plot and see if it's something you might like, and I would say I enjoyed it. It follows 5 friends like surrounding their sort of lives living in Nuuk in Greenland. There's a lot of focus on sort of like hedonism and parties and going out and fancying someone and smooching them and stuff like that. But there's also a lot in there about gender identity and relationships and politics and scandal and stuff like that. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It's also sort of a bit multimedia. It's got some texts and stuff in there, a few pages of text written in letters or written like, yeah, just would recommend. But more thoughts on that when I do my Patreon book club. So there we go, 9 books that I've read so far this year. It's going well. Have I read any of my faves this year? I don't think so. I don't think there was a favourite book read in January this year so far. But there we go. So as I said, I'm taking February off, going to lay on a beach somewhere. I'm not going to lay on a beach somewhere, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to work. And I'll see you all again in March. But as I said, if you would like to follow me and my reading, then do head on over to Instagram and follow me at Lauren and the Books, and you will see me review all of my books there on Instagram stories, and they stick around because they're on the highlights on my page if you'd like to have a look at what books I'm reading. And yeah, I'll see you all again in March for another booktube video. Goodbye!